This is the Crimson Corner with Bill Riley.
Walks it into the end zone for a Utah touchdown.
Your source for the best insight on everything happening in and around Utah athletics. Now, here's the host of the Crimson Corner, the voice of the Utes, Bill Riley.
Welcome into another edition of the Crimson Corner podcast presented by Advanced Window Products. I'm the play-by-play voice of the University of Utah, Bill Riley. It's great to have you with us today as we reach a bye week for Utah football and then a big stretch in October ahead. Got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to recap the big win at West Virginia this week. Has Utah fixed what ailed it against Texas Tech yet? We'll discuss that just a little bit. The bye week, of course, this week. Does it come at a good time? We always ask that question, but I think that's a legitimate question this year, so we'll talk a little bit about that and the preparation for the Arizona State Sun Devils coming up. Got a very special guest on this week's edition of the Crimson Corner, my good friend and arguably one of the greatest Utes of all time, Eric Weddle, is going to come by. Nobody that's a former Ute follows the program quite like Eric Weddle does. So E-Dub will join us. He's also Coach Weddle now. He's a very prominent high school football coach now in Southern California, in his hometown of San Diego. So we'll talk to E-Dub on the program today and then kind of take a spin around campus, let you know what's going on. Basketball season's right around the corner, so we'll talk a little bit about that on the men's and women's side and all that good stuff. And again, a big thank you to our good friends at Advanced Window Products. They sponsor this each and every week. If you're not familiar with the company, Nate Orchard, you remember Nate Orchard, the mayor of Sac Lake City. I know John Henry Daly's pushing him for that title right now, but till somebody out unseats him, and Nate will always be the mayor of Sac Lake City. It's his company, and they do great work at Advanced Window Products. So if you need window treatments or just brand new energy-efficient windows for your home, find Nate's crew, and they'll do a good job. They've done a good job for me over the years. I've used them, and they've done good work for me, and I can't recommend them enough at Advanced Window Products. All right, let's start with a little Utah football now. They absolutely hammered the West Virginia Mountaineers on Saturday. 48-14 was the final score. They got the first Big 12 win of the season. They got the first Big 12 road win of the season. They basically did what you're supposed to do against a team that's in flux, a lesser team. West Virginia is a proud history, proud program, but right now they're kind of in transition. They rehired Rich Rodriguez. He's a great coach. He'll do good things there, but they just don't have the horses. They've got 83 new guys on their roster, and it was very apparent from the jump that they were outclassed by Utah that day. The offense bounced back. It had a rough week against Texas Tech. It bounced back. It looked in sync. Led by Devin Dampier. Devin had a huge day, 237 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. He also ran for 33 yards and a touchdown. You can tell he's not quite 100% yet, but he was better than he was physically against Texas Tech, and it showed. Utah rolled up 532 yards of offense, 290 through the air, 242 on the ground. I'm just going to tell you right now, those are numbers that Kyle Whittingham and Jason Beck will take every day of the week and twice on Sunday, even if you invert those numbers. 290 yards rushing, 242 yards passing. They'll take those as well. And I'll tell you what, we were wondering before the season who would catch footballs, who were going to be the playmakers for Utah. Remember, all spring long, that was kind of the question. Even into fall camp, that was the question. Well, we've begun to see some guys emerge, and it really should be no surprise that the guy that's leading Utah in receiving is, because he's got a relationship with the offensive coordinator and the quarterback. His name's Ryan Davis. He had the first 100-yard receiving day of the year for Utah football. He had 7 grabs, 107 yards. He had a touchdown. He's number 2 in the Big 12 in receptions. He's number 3 in the Big 12 with receiving yards. The offense looked good. We have pass catchers in this offense, Utah fans. There are guys. Are there explosive big play down the field guys? That's still kind of to be determined. I think there's some guys on the roster, guys like Tobias Merriweather, Larry Simmons, even Jackson Benny can get deep. Utah hasn't done a ton of deep stuff. It's been more short and intermediate, but it's worked for them. In fact, they had 10 different guys catch passes on Saturday against West Virginia. 7 different guys ran the football, and they were effective doing that as well. They haven't had that big 100-yard game, but Rogers and Parker and Dampier, and then we saw a little bit of Daniel Bray, the freshman from Texas. The offense looked really, really good. I didn't have any doubt that the defense would look good because I knew going into that game West Virginia was going to be playing like 3 or 4 different quarterbacks. Rich Rod's trying to figure out who he can build around for the future. Maybe he found the guy in Khalil Hawkins, the kid that played late in the game. I'm not sure, but the Utah defense was good, and they were better certainly than West Virginia was on Saturday. My three big takeaways from the game on Saturday: when Utah controls the line of scrimmage, good things happen, right? Water is wet, death taxes, all that stuff. But when they control the line of scrimmage, good things happen for Utah. The offensive line was dominant. It showed the ability to run the ball and pass protect. And when Utah can run the football, everything else works. That's when the passing game works. When Utah is able to establish the line of scrimmage and run the football, the pass game opens. Second big takeaway from the week, key injuries, they're starting to impact the secondary just a little bit. A couple of weeks ago, Utah lost Rabbit Evans for the year. They took a big hit early in the game with Nate Ritchie, who went out the other day. Jackson Benny, ironically enough, got hurt on a kind of a non-contact play. He twisted what looked like his ankle on an offensive play. It wasn't even a defensive play. So the good news for Utah Saturday was West Virginia could, if you could have put, Utah would have had 7 guys out there. I'm not sure West Virginia would have been able to complete many passes. But they've got some injuries. That's why when we get to the bye week conversation, I think it's an important note right now for Utah. Third big takeaway, Daniel Bray. He's a freshman running back from Fort Worth, Texas. We heard a lot about Daniel in the spring and summer. He's an elite athlete, super fast. In fact, talking to Teo Johnson the other week, we were joking about who's the fastest guy on the team. Teo says, well, it's me. Maybe it's Smith Snowden. And then the third guy that he mentioned, Daniel Bray. Not a real big kid, but they used him a lot in jet sweep motion and brought him across the formation. He made some nice plays. He can also catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit. Kyle Whittingham said after the game, yeah, you're going to see more of Daniel Bray. Really what it's been with Bray is, learning and adapting to the speed of big-time college football. It's one thing to do it in practice and camp, but game speed's a different kind of speed. But now with 5 games under their belt, it looks like Bray might be a guy that could impact the offense, which is good news because Utah lost one of its better weapons a week ago when Hunter Andrews went out with an injury for the year. So those are my 3 big takeaways. Daniel Bray, key injuries maybe beginning to impact the secondary a little bit. And, of course, when Utah controls the line of scrimmage, good things tend to happen. My game ball, in a 48-14 win, it's hard to find a definitive player, but I'm going to give it to Devin Dampier this week just simply because he had a rough week against Texas Tech. He had his first couple of interceptions of the year. It just wasn't his day, and, of course, he was dealing with a little bit of an injury, according to Kyle Whittingham. But he bounced back nicely against West Virginia. He's still not playing at 100%. Hopefully that will be the case by the time we get to Arizona State in a week or so. But, again, he threw for a big number, 237 yards, 4 touchdowns. He ran the ball effectively and got in the end zone once. He himself accounted for 5 touchdowns on a day where Utah's offense rolled. So my game ball is going to go to Devin Dampier. All right, it's the bye week now for Utah. Let's go over the good right now. The good is Utah's winning at the line of scrimmage this past week on both sides. They didn't turn the football over, and they made a bunch of big chunk plays, 21 plays of 10 yards or more. That's the good for Utah right now. What still needs work in the bye week? Well, the tackling could probably still be better. Wasn't quite as bad as it was against Texas Tech, but they still missed some tackles. And even Kyle Whittingham said after the game, we've got to get better on that. We can use the bye week to work on tackling. I'd like to see Utah, challenge down the field a little bit more. Some downfield throws. Merriweather, Benny, they're deep threats. They don't get the ball a lot. But if here's the thing. If Utah's able to run the football at the level to which they've run the football in their wins, teams have to sell out to stop the run. And play action in those deep shots will be there for Devin Dampier. I have no doubt about that. So, does the bye week come at a good time? I mentioned injuries. Everybody has them through 5 games. Nobody's immune to injuries. Football's a violent game. But, yes, I think especially now in the day and age where you have 2 byes. In fact, Utah's got a tough schedule. We know that with Arizona State coming up, the game at BYU. Cincinnati looks like it might be a decent team. They've got to go to K-State, Kansas, Baylor. It's not an easy schedule over the next 7 games. But with the double bye, I'm not sure Kyle Whittingham could have played it better. You played 5 games. Now you have a bye week. You've got a tough October where you'll play 4 games, and then you have another bye week to rest up for that stretch run of the season where you're at Baylor, home with K-State, and then at Kansas to close it out. So, yes, Kyle will tell you, well, we don't determine the bye week. We just have to take it when it comes. I get all that. But when you take a step back and look at the big picture scheme of things, to get the bye week now in advance. Now, to the credit, Arizona State's also got a bye week this week, too, so they're able to heal up, too. So both teams, in theory, will be coming in fresh next week. But for Utah to be able to have some rest, to have gotten through some games, to be 4-1, they're ranked 25th in the coaches poll, just outside of the AP poll, and all their goals are still in front of them right now. I think the bye week does come at a really good time. If you happen to miss it, the kickoff for the ASU game coming up on the 11th is going to be an 8:15. So 2 former Pac-12 teams playing yet another Pac-12 after dark football game. The good news is Rice-Eccles Stadium on a Saturday night is usually rocking like no other. But you'll probably need your power nap for that game because it will be a late kickoff. How about ASU? We'll talk more about ASU coming up next week, but just a few thoughts on them as we kind of get into the bye week. They're 4-1 on the year as well. Their one loss was on the road. They played Mississippi State a couple of weeks ago and lost that game down in Starkville. But last week, they got a last-second win, maybe a little bit of help from some officials. You be the judge of that. But they have back-to-back 27-24 wins. The week before, they beat Baylor 27-24. This past Friday night, many of you may have watched it the night before the Utah game, they beat TCU, a good TCU team, 27-24 in Tempe. Sam Leavitt, for my money, probably the best quarterback in the Big 12. He has the ability to both throw it. He can sling it now. And he can run it, too. We think about Devin Dampier. Sam Leavitt's got 281 yards rushing this year. This is a guy that's a pocket passer who can run. He's a great athlete, and 5 rushing touchdowns. He's also thrown for over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He also happens to have the best wide receiver in the Big 12 Conference. Jordan Tyson, he's a first-round receiver. Where he goes in the first round remains to be seen. He's an NFL guy. You see it. He pops off the screen. Last year, Utah did a pretty good job keeping. Actually, I think last year he was beat up a little bit. He may not have played against the Utes last year. It was Scadaboo who did the damage down in Tempe last year. But Tyson, 39 catches, that leads the Big 12. 483 yards, that leads the Big 12. 7 touchdowns, that leads the Big 12. He's the best wide receiver in the Big 12. He'll be matched up, my guess, a lot with Smith Snowden. We'll see how that goes. But this is a good team. Kenny Dillingham's got a good team. He's built a big culture and a good culture down there. Their defense is good, too. They're pretty physical as well. So I think it'll be a really good game. And, again, we should get the best out of both teams because you'll have 2 teams that are very well rested for that game. Both teams having a bye week this week. It's a big game for Utah just simply because it's at home. Utah's already suffered a conference loss. They lost to Texas Tech. I said before the year I thought the team that won the conference might have 2 conference losses. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case now. There's a lot of football to be played, but Iowa State and Texas Tech, they're winning and winning impressively right now. Tech had a bye last week. Iowa State absolutely walloped the team they played last week. So I'm thinking these games at home are the ones you've got to really win and protect, especially after losing that game to Texas Tech a week and a half ago. So it'll be a big game under the lights, ESPN television, sold-out crowd at Rice-Eccles, 2 teams that know each other very, very well. And to be fair, last year, Utah actually played ASU really well down in Tempe. They lost, I believe the final score was 23-13, somewhere in that neighborhood. It was a late Scadaboo touchdown where it looked like Utah had him wrapped up. And he popped out of the pile with like 4 guys holding on to him and went 47 yards to kind of seal the deal. But with Utah's offensive challenges, and you'll remember last year that was the game where Cam Rising it was the last time Cam tried to go last year. And he was so beat up he wasn't able to do it. And ASU held on to win. I think it's going to be a much different game this year and a very good game at Rice-Eccles Stadium. So that's a week from now. We'll talk more about the Devils coming up, but I do think the bye week comes at a really, really good time for this Utah football team. We're going to grab a break here on Crimson Corner. When we come back, he is arguably as good a football player as has ever played here at the University of Utah. Good friend of mine and somebody that follows this program inside and out. The great Eric Weddle, the Beard himself, will join us coming up next on the Crimson Corner.
Here's another insider interview on the Crimson Corner podcast.
Continuing here on the Crimson Corner podcast this week, it's good to have our next guest on with me. He's been a friend of mine for a long time, and he was on my radio show every week for years, and now I don't have a radio show anymore, so I just get the occasional text from him going, "How the boys doing this week? What do you think? What's going on in Ute land?" It's one of the great players in Utah football history and one of the great players in recent NFL history as well. He's now known as Coach Eric Weddle, joining us here on the Crimson Corner. What's up, my man?
How are you doing, Riles? Good to see you. Always great to catch up and visit and share stories and reconnect, because there's nothing like great friends and family in this life we're trying to navigate. That's for sure.
Yeah, you learn that as you get older, don't you? That all the other stuff that you thought mattered when you were younger doesn't matter as much, but the relationships you've had for a long time and people that are important are really what matters.
Oh, you're 100% right. And, it's trying to teach these young kids, these young men, trying to think about the long game and teach them what's most important in life. And it's not the clicks. It's not the who's popular, who's the this and that, and it's not about that. It's about being a good person and really creating a foundation of what you want to be and what you want to be known for. And that's someone that's accountable and someone that owns their decisions and even good or bad, owning it and moving forward and learning from it.
I would say a lot of people know what you're talking about right there, these young men, but let's not assume everybody knows what Eric Weddle's been doing since he retired. You're coaching high school football now back in Southern California.
Yes, sir. Head coach going on. This is my third year at Rancho Bernardo, and it's been so many words that I could describe being a head coach at the high school level. And it's funny. I try to explain it to people. Like when I was playing in the NFL, you're basically removed from society for years, right? Like 14 years. I didn't really know what was going on in the climate, political, all that other crap, and especially like high school sports. So when I retired and decided to take on high school coaching, I was expecting to be like when I was in high school, and that kind of mindset and the joy and love of football, and it's just not the case anymore. So having to adapt and still pour into the kids, but also not let it ruin my day and life when a kid's not running through the line or didn't look at the huddle film or this and that, because in a lot of these cases, these kids are just playing just to play, and they don't really love the game like we grew up loving the game.
It's funny you say that, because I teach a class here at the U now. It's a sports media class. And I loved my sports media classes when I was in college at Kansas, and I'm excited to teach this. And coaching and teaching, there's a lot the same. You're not doing it for the money. I'm certainly not teaching for the money, and you're not coaching for it, but you're putting it in. And sometimes you show up to class and you're excited. You got a great game plan.
Yeah.
And your energy does not match theirs, or better yet, their energy does not match yours. I'm sure you run into that too with football, right?
Oh my gosh. It's a direct similarities to that. And it was tough my first year, and I had to pull back a lot of what I was asking of the players and what I demanded. And I was losing a lot of kids because football's hard, and it's not like other sports where you can practice it on your own and you don't have to lift, you don't have to condition, you don't have to do hard things. Like a lot of sports aren't like that, and football is hard, and we ask you to do tough things, and it's ultimately building you to be a successful man in society, a successful husband and father one day. I mean, that's what this game can do for you if you pour into it. And so I've had to adapt and change a little bit and not let things ruffle my feathers as they did my first year or two. So I'm learning and growing and enjoying being around these young kids and trying to help them develop into being better men.
Well, and for those that don't know the story, Eric had their opportunity. A lot of people thought, well, he'll come join Kyle Whittingham's staff, or he'll take a job at college or the pros. There's a really big reason why you're coaching high school football, and it's a great reason because you get to hang out and spend some time with your son.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it could be a challenge, it could be frustrating, but also there's no better moments to have with my son than being on the football field. He literally loves the game so much, and to see his passion and energy and how hard he works, how he pushes himself to be a leader and to be a great player. It's awesome. And reason I retired was to spend more time with my kids and to coach them in youth football. I could have kept on playing. I was still able to, but becomes a time where it's more about your family than it is about yourself, and you may have to make that decision. So uh, it's a joy every day, and trying to pour into him and help him navigate his journey. Right, it's not my journey anymore, so I just try to help him see the big picture and try to keep him on the straight and narrow, as hard as that is for these young kids. But I can't wait for you to see him as he gets older, because he's a fun one to be around.
I actually pulled up some highlights yesterday before we went to tape this, and he's a Weddle, that's for sure. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. So I'm it's fun for me to watch his journey from afar because I can remember when he was born. And you
Oh,
told me,
seriously?
yeah, I
Yeah.
can remember second one in the Weddle clan, second one up.
Hmm.
I can remember that. So it's fun to see him there. And I have no doubt that he loves the game because of who his dad is. Coaching high school football, is this a lifetime vocation for you, or would you look eventually? I know you're having fun doing it now. Would you look
Yeah.
eventually to step up and to the college or the pro game?
Yeah. I mean, uh, if I'm being 100% honest, which I usually always am, uh, the high school is draining. Uh, you have so much you deal with on and off the field, and as the head coach, I applaud and tip my hat to anyone that's coaching high school football or any high school sport, because I do it for free. The stipend I give back to my coaches, and you put so much into it, and for the few that you feel the return, that's what you do it for. But there's a lot that goes off to the wayside. So I'll see it through Gage, and then I'll for sure coach one more year after that. Uh, I don't want to leave the program out to dry, but I'm not a lifer of high school. I'm not, if I'm being honest, I'm not meant to coach high school ball. I'm not as patient, forgiving, nice. I was in the league, and that's who I am, right? So when my kids are out of the high school, that could be an opportunity that may come arise, or they just sit back and enjoy being like a grandpa at that point. I don't know. Like my oldest is a senior. She's gonna be going off to school. Age will be gone in a couple years, so we're gonna be empty nesters here before you know it, and we'll just, who knows what we'll want to do.
Grandpa Beard. That's something for another day. Speaking of not necessarily being nice, back to, about 21 years ago, 22 years ago, you came to the University of Utah as a freshman. There was a guy named Urban Meyer that was just beginning his career at Utah. Urban was back a couple of weeks ago and part of the big noonday, honored going into the College Football Hall of Fame this year. But you were a freshman when Urban began. So I'd just be
Hmm.
curious what you remember about those early days. And Eric, that's quite an introduction to college football because Urban Meyer was here trying to change a culture.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember the stories of winter workouts, and how many guys had left the program and quit, and before I got there. I got there 2 weeks before training camp because I got there a couple weeks earlier to work out with the guys, and I was staying on the couch at Brett Elliott's house and Tommy Hackenbrook and those guys. They were letting me hang out with them. Super, super grateful for that. And so I heard the stories, and then we got there, and it was intense is an understatement. And when you're trying to change the culture of a program, like I've been doing it over the course of 2.5, 3 years, it takes time. And there are certain balances that you have to navigate through. It was much easier back in the day. Like you can't use those same tactics now. You'd be fired instantly. But you had to see who was bought in. You had to see who was willing to be a part of the team, a part of the program, part of the culture. And those are the guys you want to ride with. And so I honestly, I still hold on to a lot of how he was as a coach. When he always let the punt team eat first at team dinners. So I let the special teams unit of the week always eat first, and then the seniors, juniors, sophomores. So there are some things that I've definitely taken from him, and there's some things that I obviously don't because of the way you speak to guys or try to lift them up. Like there are different coaching personalities that we don't see the same, but he was a cornerstone of that turnaround. And we owe a lot to Coach Meyer and how he elevated our program to heights where it is now.
He made Utah football. I joke about this all the time. Coach Mack laid the foundation. Mm. Urban made football cool at Utah. Those 2 years he was there, I mean,
oh man,
it was only 2. Crazy. He made it cool, and he would trash talk BYU especially, and he had fun. And then Kyle built upon it. But those 2 years were an important 2 years.
Oh, for sure. Put us on the map as a serious program. Not a lot of people knew about Utah, especially outside of Utah, Idaho, and Nevada. Like you just didn't hear about the University of Utah very much. Basketball you did, obviously, but football, and then you didn't. And then we had those 2 years, and we were the benchmark of the mid majors at the time to crash the BCS, and then in 2009, doing what we did to Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, it really put a stamp on we are a program on the rise. We are a serious top program in the country, and just continuing to build off that. There were some low points, but we've been a slow, steady climb ever since. And it's awesome as an alum to see it and know that it's in great hands.
You mentioned something a minute ago. You've been trying to instill your culture at Rancho Bernardo High School. Tough in today's day and age. Collegiately, Eric, it's tough today. Utah is lucky to have Kyle Whittingham and a culture that's been in place because it's just different. I mean, kids, if they don't like the way you talk to them, hit the transfer portal. People don't stick around. And you mentioned football being tough. A lot of guys, it is a tough sport. A lot of life lessons, but a lot of guys don't want to tough it out, do they? It's a different sport than when you played it.
Yeah, I wish kids would realize that. I don't like to say running, like it's hand in hand, especially at the collegiate level. Like sometimes you sit down with a coach and the coach is like, "Hey, like you're not ever going to play here. It's probably best you move on." Right. Like that's probably half the instances too. And then the other half are kids wanting this, wanting that, or scared to compete, not scared, but would rather be handed to them. When they grow up in a situation where it's always handed to them, they're not competing and not dealing with adversity, not having tough conversations with a coach on why you're not playing, what do you need to do to improve on. Well, then you get in those instances, and the kids that handle that growing up, who have to compete, they're the ones that end up surpassing the other individuals. Like anytime, and I'm not trying to pat my son on the back, but anytime he gets in competitive situations, he has this aura where his level of play rises because he knows when he crosses that white line, it's time, it's doggy dog world. Like I have to go prove myself every rep anytime I'm on that field, and I'm out there to destroy whoever's out there against me. So he gets in these competitive situations, and these guys will around him because they're not used to it. And they're just like, oh, like they don't understand just competition. And so I try to teach my boys that every day is a competition. Every day you're out there to try to prove yourself. And ultimately, if it doesn't work out, then why? Sit down and have a tough conversation with your coach and let him explain to you why you're not playing or why your role is diminished. And then go to work. Don't run from it. Because what's going to happen in the real world when tough things happen? You get fired or you have a tough conversation with your admin or your boss and they say, "Hey, you're not getting your job done." Are you going to run or are you going to figure it out and work harder and improve? So I think it's a lost trait and it's kind of the landscape of where we're at. But it's on us as teachers and mentors and coaches to remind these kids what's most important, and that's staying where your feet are and improving and competing and learning, right? This world, we're here to learn and grow and be better. We're not here to run and look for the easier route.
Eric Weddle's with us for a few more minutes here on Crimson Corner this week. It's great to catch up with Eric and see what's going on. You played for 2 years for Urban, a couple years for Kyle. What do you think Kyle's legacy is, both here at Utah, but also the big picture of college football, Eric?
Gosh, I think his legacy will be as someone who had a standard, had an identity, but was also willing to adapt and learn and grow as the times changed and shifted. You look at some of these coaches that are around the same age and or been coaching as long as him, and they've been left by the wayside because they haven't been able to see the big picture and adapt to it. And so I think we're lucky. We're lucky to have his leadership, his guidance, his standard. And the great thing about Utah is no outsider will ever be a coach at Utah. We just won't let it happen. And because us alums, guys that like yourself, we're so proud of our university and what this university stands for and what is the expectation and standard, that it's in good hands, right? Because Morgan's been groomed for this for almost 2 decades now. He's been in every role imaginable to take over, and he understands it better than anyone. And the successor after him will be someone that's within the program. It's culturally too tight in the connection that we have within that program. It's in good hands, and I'm excited whenever that is, whether it's now, in the future, or later on. We're always going to have a good standing in our program because of the men that lead it.
Morgan is your teammate and your friend. So this is a little bit of a loaded question, but tell me why you think he's going to be successful. You mentioned he's done it forever and he knows, but what is it about Morgan Scalley that makes you think, yeah, this guy's going to be the next head coach and he's going to do great?
Well, I think he has a good grasp on the young athletes, the young men. I think he has a vision for the program and where he wants to improve and put his personality and flavor onto it, but also understanding what we are and what our standard is. Like, that's never not going to be a part of Utah football. And that's being great men and being great teammates and doing right things on and off the field. That's what correlates to greatness on the field. And we want those type of players, and we may not get the 5-star, 4-star kids, and that's okay. We never have, and we've been successful without them. It's about the right people for the right program and who are going to buy in because seeing the big picture. So I see that, obviously, the coachability, the motivation factor, the teaching factor, being a great example and learning under great head coaches like Coach Witt and seeing Coach Meyer and always being able to seek out others to get better, whether it's schematically or leadership or being in those positions of leadership. I think he was meant to be the head coach, the future head coach. And whenever that happens, he's going to be successful. And I'm excited to support him and be someone that he can rely on.
Who was the coach? Give me one college, one. Who was the coach that had the biggest impact on you collegiately? And in your 14 years of playing pro ball, what coach on the pro level had the biggest impact on you?
Oh, man, that is man, I would say in college, I would say a few, like Coach Witt, uh, obviously, and then I would say Jay Hill and Coach Odom
Okay.
were really coaches that pushed me and trusted me and allowed me, in a sense, to use my abilities per se. That they didn't hold me back. They guided me, but allowed me to grow and challenge me and push me. And I think that was a huge part of my development when Jay coached me and Coach Odom coached me, that I was really able to succeed in the NFL. And you could tell why they're some of the best coaches in college, where they're at, both defense coordinators. And Jay will be a head coach soon. And then Coach Odom, I'm sure, eventually will be as well. In the NFL, I would honestly lean on, Coach Rivera when I was younger, his stint as defense coordinator when we were number one defense in the league, just his demeanor, his preparation, and I love my time with the Ravens. So Coach Harbaugh and obviously Coach McVay. I'm still, Sean and I probably text once or twice a week. We're still really close, and it's about relationships, like we said. And when you connect on a different level, bigger than the game, and it's reciprocated, you're just willing to go out of your way to help or be there or be a soundboard. Like a lot of times I'm just there to let him know I'm there for him, right? And if he needs to vent to me, go vent, and we could talk it out, because you're in these roles as head coach, and it's a very alone job, and you don't have many people around you. One, that you can just have a real conversation with. Two, you have not many people that will tell you really what's going on, right? Like good, bad, or indifferent. Like knowing that it's not coming from a pace that you're trying to take their job or they're trying to snake around. Like it's just a genuine, hey, this is what I see. Take it for what it's worth, and then being able to digest that information and use it to improve. Like you don't have many people like that at any level. So I would say I've learned most from those guys.
Let's wrap it up with this. You watch every game. You see the
I
Ute.
do.
You will
I
text
do.
me occasionally. What are you seeing? He was at the Rose Bowl, saw him in person when they hammered UCLA. They're in a bye week this week, 4-1, 1-1 in Big 12 play. We always did the bye week come at a good time. Well, they get two now. You played a month, they'll get another one at the beginning of November. So I'd
Yeah.
just be curious, your big picture read from afar on what you've seen from the Utes so far.
Yeah, I mean, I like the energy. I like the passion. I love how connected I feel the team is. I feel like there's no this or that or pointing fingers. Like I feel like it's a very connected team, and that will carry us further than anything else, which I personally love as a coach and as a player. Like just being connected on the field. We're going to still improve. I still think we're one of the better teams in the Big 12. We just got to go prove it. And everything's right there in front of us to go do what we need to do. Just got to go win the bye and still stay connected and believe in the process.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. We were having that discussion on the post-game show, Scott and Sly and I, that day that, Utah's been in the first three games, they just bullied people up front and did whatever they wanted to do up front. They met a team. They didn't do anything exotic. Texas Tech rushed four and sat their linebackers 5 yards from the line and said, you're not going to run on us. And if you throw short, we're going to tackle you 3 or 4 yards down the field. So you're right. You're going to have to figure out a way. Now, I also said too, they're not going to face many other people in the Big 12 that are
Definitely
as.
not.
I mean, we
That
both know
front,
Texas. They
yeah,
invested well. They spent their $50 million well, and good
yes.
for them. But there are going to be other good. ASU's good. BYU's good.
Hmm.
There's going to be some. Baylor's not bad. There's going to be some teams. So you're right. That's going to have to evolve because you're not going to be able to bully everybody, and you're going to have that second pitch. You can't throw the fastball all the time, right?
100%. And it's no knock on anybody.
No.
It's just the development of offensive football and coaching and the fundamentals and understanding that at the end of the day, like it's at any level. Okay, you have to offensively you can run around and make plays and do all this stuff, but at the end of the day, when the game's on the line, you have to understand what the defense is doing. You got to either check or know where to go with the ball on your third step, get the ball out with a free runner off the blitz. Like, that's what it comes down to. And the greatest teams or the greatest offenses have a quarterback that does that. And now am I shooting for the stars because that's what I want? Well, yeah, I play at the highest level. I know what it takes. I've gone against all these different type of quarterbacks and offenses and understand what is the difficult to defend. So I want my team to aspire to be like that because I know that's what will win us championship. So it's just pressing for greatness, honestly, and understanding that it wasn't good enough by our standards, and everyone knows that. But also seeing, hey, we were right there. That was a really good team. I was really impressed with their whole entire team. But hey, that's football. That's life. How are we going to respond? We responded well last week. We got to go win the bye, and then build off some momentum going into the middle part of our schedule.
Utes have to do that. Rancho Bernardo's got to take care of business this week to get to 6-0, don't you?
Yes, sir. At Del Norte, big game, starting league play. We got to go get the job done.
Hey, when Rancho Bernardo and Del Norte get together, you just throw the records out.
No doubt. No doubt,
I could talk to you all day, and we could do this. I got an idea. When you're done coaching, we're going to do the Dub and Riles podcast.
Hey, let's do it. Hey, let's just talk shop. I would love it.
Hey, thanks for doing this, Eric. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it, Riles.
There you go. Love that guy. That's Eric Weddle with us here on the Crimson Corner. We'll wrap it up next. Stay with us.
The best insight on all things Utah athletics. It's the Crimson Corner Podcast.
Big thank you to Eric Weddle for joining us on this week's edition of the Crimson Corner Podcast. It's really strange. Eric's been a friend of mine for a long time. I remember covering him and interviewing him when he was a freshman in 2003, the first year of the Urban Meyer run here at the University of Utah. And he is exactly the same person today as a great human being and a wonderful person as he was that day when he was 18 years old. Some guys are changed by fame, fortune, and success. Eric Weddle is not. And that's why I'm so happy to call him a friend, and that's why I think Utah fans love the guy so much, as you should. All right, a few other notes today. Men's basketball practice. Alex Jensen's had the guys on the court for a couple of weeks now, and things are beginning to come together. We're going to try and get Alex on the pod here in the coming weeks to kind of preview the season and see what they've got up there. But they're about 16 days out from their first exhibition game against the Nevada Wolfpack. That'll be at the Huntsman Center on Friday night, October the 17th. It's a real game. They've kind of done away with the secret scrimmage things. A lot of these basketball teams are doing real bona fide exhibition games, if not glorified scrimmages. And Utah will begin their scrimmage season against Nevada. You'll be able to go into the Huntsman Center and get a look at this team. That's why I'm anxious to have Al on the program, because I want his take now that they've had the summer together and they've had a couple of weeks of real hard practice getting ready for the season. But that'll be coming up on October 17th, and we'll try and get Alex on either before that or just after that, before the season starts, to talk about the upcoming season. By all accounts, everybody's excited about this group. There's a real energy in the times I've been around the team this fall, so I want to see how it translates when they get out on the floor. And the good news is they're going to be playing a real team, the Nevada Wolfpack, and a good program. Steve Alford's program is good, so we'll get to see them on Friday, October 17th. Same thing with women's basketball. They've got practice underway, and they've got a bunch of new faces. The old group of Gianna Neepkins and Jenna Johnson and Esh Vieta and Kennedy McQueen and that group that had been around. It felt like they were around together forever. Well, they're all gone now. Jenna's still on the staff, but they're not playing anymore. And so you've got a lot of new faces. You've got some similar faces from a year ago. You know, Maddie Wilkie's back and some others, but there's going to be a lot of new faces out there for Gavin Peterson this year, and I think he's excited about the new energy that they've got. They'll play their first home exhibition, really their only home exhibition, on October the 27th against Western Colorado. That's roughly a week or so before they begin the season. Both Utah men and women will open the season on November the 3rd. So it'll be a doubleheader that day at the Huntsman Center, and that's when the regular season begins. You can go to utahtickets.com to get single-game tickets, some of the mini packs that they've got, and, of course, season tickets are still available as well. Women's soccer is on the road this week. They're trying to find their first win in Big 12 play. They're playing at Central Florida Thursday and at Houston Sunday. That's probably the toughest road trip in the Big 12 Conference when you think about it. West Virginia, Cincinnati is a tough trip, but flying to Orlando and then flying to Houston, that is probably the most difficult trip. Even if people fly west to see, say, Utah and BYU, it's the longest trip for some teams back east, but at least it's only a 40-mile ride between the two schools. You're going on a 5-hour plane ride to Orlando and then another 3.5-hour plane ride back to Houston. So they'll play on Thursday and then on Sunday. And then Utah volleyball had a tough weekend at home last weekend. It's going to go on the road. They're at Arizona coming up on Thursday. And then they'll play number 8 Arizona State on Saturday. So a chance to, find the first Big 12 wins for Beth Lanier's side as well, as their season is well underway, 0-2 right now in Big 12 action. And, of course, no football this weekend. So this will give you guys a chance to take in the rest of the Big 12. If you haven't had a chance to watch Big 12 football, you can watch Big 12 football this weekend and see. You won't get to see Arizona State because they're coming in here next week and they're on a bye. But for the other teams you haven't seen yet this year, maybe it's a TCU. Maybe it's a Baylor. Maybe it's a BYU. Some teams you haven't seen that are on Utah's schedule and you want to do a little advanced scouting, well, you can do that this weekend. And then, of course, next week we'll be back with the Arizona State Sun Devils coming to Rice-Eccles Stadium. I want to thank Eric Weddle for jumping on the pod today with us. It's always good to catch up with E-Dub and see how things are going with him and more continued success in his coaching career. I want to thank my friend Nick Bowler-Jack, who's the producer, the executive producer of this. He actually makes me sound good. Takes out all of my my mistakes, or at least most of them. I make it hard on Nick editing. And I want to thank you guys for listening, and, of course, our friends at Advanced Window Products, the mayor of Sac Lake City's company, Nate Orchard, for the best windows in town that are made right here in Utah. It's Advanced Window Products. So, for Nick Bowler-Jack, Eric Weddle, and all of our crew here, I'm Bill Riley saying we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening to the Crimson Corner.
You've been listening to the Crimson Corner podcast with Bill Riley. Bill is back next week with the latest on Utes. Download previous Crimson Corner episodes on all major podcast platforms.